Yeah.
Okay.
All right, if y'all are ready, we'll go ahead and get started. Alex, will you do our invocation?
I'll do that. If you can, please rise. Our Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the beautiful day that we've had and for the days that we have. So enjoy this land and this county and the creation that you've given us to take care of. And we ask that you guide us tonight as we make decisions. Give us wisdom, give us knowledge, give us a manner of being able to discuss things as you would have us to do. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We do have one potential addition here to the agenda. Sandy, that, what was it that we were going to? The lease, oh yeah. We budgeted for several vehicles, but we budgeted lease payment, not cash amount. And we're ready to execute that lease now. And we just need a resolution to do that. It's money that's already been budgeted. It's not any change in any way. But we do need, so that we can get this done in a timely manner for our audit, we need to get this thing done. So I would like to add to the agenda the approval for that resolution.
Charlie, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because I think that the lease agreement that I was given has a 3-year lease. It's already there.
There's two separate leases. One is for enterprise leasing, because there were several vehicles we didn't get through enterprise. And that's, who's the leaser?
Yes.
Municipal leasing on 3 vehicles.
I still thought, David, you read the lease, checked it, I don't know, is it different than what we budgeted? I thought it was the same, Charlie. If it was, we wouldn't have to do
No,
it.
it's the same thing we budgeted, but they are asking that we do a resolution for it.
Yeah, the dollar amount hasn't changed. The fiscal expenditure remains the same. The leasing corporation or leasing company requires that there be a formal resolution authorizing and entering into that lease arrangement. And that's what y'all will be doing tonight, is just authorizing the chairman to execute the lease agreement.
It's not a change to anything we've done.
I just thought we'd already done it all.
Not this one.
Okay.
Did you think I had something for, whenever for the first time? The one I can do this.
Well,
I didn't expect you.
I didn't know on that if it's something that we can add to this or not.
Had you proposed it?
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Well, that's the question. I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to probably have to have another special call meeting because we got a couple other things associated with the audit that we need to take care of. I'd rather just do this then. Because I don't want to put add a bunch to an agenda that wasn't advertised. I'm okay with this because we're not changing anything. But I will make that in form of a motion for this, that we approve the agenda subject to that one addition.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Regretfully.
Yeah. Okay, so the first order of business would be that the leasing company has asked that we do a resolution into that lease. David, have you seen that resolution yet? Everything's okay with it? And I would make a motion that we, that y'all would authorize me to execute that resolution.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Which brings us to the swimming pool. Before we get real deeply into the swimming pool, I want to make a few comments up front, to make some explanations. There's been a lot of speculation. Why didn't we fix this pool over the winter instead of waiting until now? Is one of them. I'd like to address that. Last summer during the season, we were losing in the neighborhood of 5,000 gallons of water a day out of the pool. We, a couple of years ago, put together a 4-year plan to fund a new swimming pool. We set aside $300,000 in 18. We set aside another $300,000 in 19. The idea was we would set aside another $320,000 in 21, and then we'd have enough money to build a new pool, we hoped. And the idea was that this pool would continue to operate for 4 years. That was our hope. It has not turned out that way. The first indication of a real problem came when someone pointed out to me that we should not be leaving the pool empty when we winterize it for the winter. And I agree, when you winterize a pool, you still leave some water in it. So I called Kevin and I asked him, why did we drain the pool? And he said, we didn't drain the pool, we just stopped putting water in it every day. And before long, it was empty. So we, a couple of weeks before we normally would, we decided we'd go ahead and fill it for the season. We wanted to watch it and kind of see what we had. We filled the pool, and I asked Kevin to observe it without the pumps running, see how much water we were losing every day. Without the pumps running, we were losing in the neighborhood of 5,000 gallons a day, a little bit over. So then I asked him to turn the pumps on and see what we were losing. Because previously, most of our water loss, most of our leakage came when the pumps were running. When he turned the pumps on, we were losing 22,000 gallons a day out of that pool. Now that ain't something that's just seeping out. We're putting that water under pressure and it's shooting it out and it's going somewhere, and we don't know where that water's going. We have had an underground radar company come out. We know there's a void somewhere under there. That water has got to have washed away. A sizable hole under there somewhere. We had the folks from with the underground radar come out and go all around the pool, and they did not find a void. And the bottom line to that is the only place we can think of where that void is directly underneath the pool, because they weren't able to check for that. So there's two things there. The first is, at 22,000 gallons a day, in my opinion, that pool is just a goner. It's not worth the money it would take to repair it. I believe it was 2013 we spent 120, the county and some donors spent $123,000 repairing the pool. And there's been some other questions of where did all that money go? Why wasn't the pool repaired? Well, it was. It just didn't last. So in 13, we spent $123,000 on pool repairs. In, I believe it was 17, we knocked out all that concrete around the money of the pool and had them come out and find and plug all the leaks in that gutter system and then put the concrete back. That was relatively expensive little procedure. And here we are now again, we're losing 22,000 gallons a day. I don't believe it's worth putting any more money into that pool. I would rather take whatever money it's going to cost to repair it, so to speak. I don't think it can be repaired, and put it toward the new pool. But that was not the primary problem. That was not what prompted the decision not to open the pool this year. What prompted that decision is we know that we have a big old hole washed out somewhere. And the only place that we can think of for that to be at this point is directly underneath that pool. I did a little quick calculating, and I did it incorrectly because I thought water weighed 6.2 pounds per gallon. I understand it's 8.2. But at 6.2 pounds per gallon, we're putting 1,600,000 pounds of water into that pool. Now at 8.2, it's going to be more, probably closer to 2 million pounds. If there is a big void underneath that pool and we're putting 2 million pounds of water in that thing, I wouldn't put my kids in it. And I would not want to be responsible for having y'all's kids in it either. Probably the toughest decision I've made since I took office was not to open that pool. I did not want to make that decision. I tried to think of every way in the world to keep that pool open for another year or two. But in the end, we just couldn't take that risk. The only other thing, I suppose, is I've gotten a lot of people saying, why didn't you build the pool earlier? You know, you're setting back $300,000 every year. If you've got the money, why didn't you build it? Well, we don't have the money. We've got half the money. You know, we've set back $300,000 for 2 years. We're thinking $1.2 million for the pool. So one of the things that we want to talk about tonight is, amongst us, is how to fund that pool more quickly. It's my absolute goal to have a new pool ready to open for next year's season. But that is a really ambitious goal. I mean, it'll be tough to reach, but that's exactly what we're going to try to do, I hope. The other thing is, I have a lot of people saying 1.2 million is a ridiculous amount for a hole in the ground. Probably. But you have to remember too that that has to include dressing rooms, bathrooms, parking, paving for parking, that sort of thing. So it's a project. It's not just a hole in the ground for water. With those things being said up front, I would open the floor first, I think, for any comments that y'all make, any questions that you might have. And then I would like for us to discuss the possibility of a new pool for next year. And y'all can all weigh in on that as well. The only thing that we ask is that you go to the podium and state your name. So, if there's anybody that has questions or would like to. Okay.
My name is Thomas Paley. My name is Thomas Paley. I was
Yes.
born and raised here in Old Jake. Swam in the river, helped build the pool.
Right.
John Hall was the contractor. Lee Richard Fry was the architect. The architect coming down to check everything. You know, I was just young, 23-24-year-old man, needs boys. And I was laying brick at Dalton. Things got kind of bad. Then I went to work with him. That pool built good.
Yeah.
I tell you, they gonna cave in.
Okay.
It's got the steel. I ain't never in my life seen that steel. I held tight.
Yeah.
We built that building. I understand they spent $7,000-8,000 on the building a few years ago. I don't know why you spent that much on the building. It's in good shape. Ready to go. But, I can't understand why he wants to build another pool. Where we're at.
Can't understand what, I'm sorry.
In my head, where's that pool gonna be at?
We're not sure at this point.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
They just want to build a new pool, move it out, try to town somewhere.
Well, we're not trying to move it out of town somewhere. We don't know at this point exactly where it's going to be. I do think that it's more desirable to build a new pool and try to keep this one going.
Did you say 5,000 gallons?
It was 5,000 gallons per day. Now it's 22,000 gallons per day.
You can't find the whole world.
Can't find it.
Well, the sheriff's office built on top of the drain down there. Of course, things got to be open.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that.
Well, I wondered why they built it there years ago, so I lived here all my life. Matter of fact, I skilled concrete for about 40 years. I
Yeah.
know a little bit about concrete. I just read that in the paper and go through me and said, did you work on that? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I say, John Hall was one of the best builders there was at that time.
Yeah. And I'm not knocking the construction of the pool.
Well, I'm getting that it ain't cracked. If it got any cracks in it, or it's coming apart.
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm talking about cracks and water leak out.
From what I gather, the water is leaking from the gutter system.
From water.
The gutter system, the filtration system in the pools, the gutters that go around.
Well, it ought to show up on the outside somewhere.
Yeah, it ought to, yeah. We haven't been able to find it.
Surely somebody in the state of Georgia could find it.
Probably. But it ain't
Hey,
us.
something about that gutter. I don't know about gutters, but I know the men, I'm building the men code. Like I say, I just,
Yeah.
they got their tapes out and started checking everything. Then John said, hey, check it, he said, see how square this thing is.
Yeah.
Because the last one we come on, we had to cut a lot of angles. He said, you're cutting out here, so they said every one of them. Best I remember, they didn't cut none.
Yeah.
The other would be pretty good, it's stainless steel. But I just wondered, if you ain't got the money, where you gonna get the money? I wasn't gonna buy a new truck if I couldn't afford it.
Well, that's what we're gonna talk about tonight. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Ken Reagan, and I've been up here about 15 years. Born in Georgia, by the way. One thing, I don't know if we're getting right to the pool need for the monopool. We do need a new pool, number one. For us, the older generation, and LJ is sort of, Gilmer County is sort of shifting that way. We were trying to use the pool last year to do aerobics and exercise, and it's not even heated. And it's cold and everything is anywhere in the world. It's dated. I'm glad you built it up, but things are changing now. And I would like to be able, not just for the students to go swimming in all summer, it could be enclosed anyway, or whatever we can, to help sort of generate it towards us older people.
Right.
It would sure help.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to take it if I could.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, if you will. My name is Eric Casas. My wife and I have recently relocated here. We've had the pleasure of visiting quite a few places, and many of them have what we call a recreation center, and I'd like to expand it. It's not really a hole in the ground with water in it. You can do that with a kiddie pool. This could be integral to a part of a recreation center. You brought up the fact that it's important for the older folks. I'm 71, so I guess I consider that in that age group. It's part of rehab, if you will. It helps. There's all kinds of health benefits. It helps with balancing itself, overall health, not just for the elderly, but also for the community, if you will. Almost every community we've ever lived in, and this is the one we've decided to stay in, has a community center that has a pool as part of its community center. And that's why I would encourage you to not just think of it as another hole in the ground. You have a bathtub for that. We have a hot tub for that, if you will. But a pool is integral for, if you're going to have a community and you're going to have a recreation center, I would ask you to expand your view and not just consider it a hole in the ground.
One of the things that we determined previously was that when we have the engineering done for this, we don't want to engineer just a pool. We would like to engineer a complete recreation center that's anchored by a pool. With the stipulation, of course, that we can't build it all at once. We'll start with building the pool, but we'd like to have a completely engineered project so that as we can add on to that and ultimately have a complete recreation center. So that is the ultimate plan. We're just going to have to do it in stages. All right.
Name's Larry Likens. I've been involved in the pool for 15 years now, I suppose. I'm there every day in the summer, coaching swimming, doing other things. I think a pool is a necessity for a community. I think one of the most terribly important things is to have a guarded place for our children and families to swim. Without a public pool, we have no public guarded places in this county. And I don't think we have, Kusawati doesn't have guards, so we have zero anywhere in the county that has guards on it for people. And I think that's of paramount importance. There's so many things we can do with a pool. We can teach our kids how to swim. The public school systems could use it for PE classes, especially if it's heated. And to Jim, the reason it was so cold in the summertime is because we're having to put 5,000 gallons a day in it. When you put 5,000 gallons a day of 54-degree water into a pool, it's going to be cold. And no one knows that better than my 8-year-olds who are swimming at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it was tough on them too, but we dealt with it. And then we were part of the 13 fixing up the pool and raising the money. And the private money was $75,000, so it was more than half of the money because the private sector saw the need for a pool at that time, and I assume they still do. There's just so many opportunities that we can provide this community with it. Water aerobics, swim lessons, swim team, therapy. And if we can cover it, we can do those things year round. And if we can build, recreation centers on it, it can really become a gathering place for good, healthy lifestyles in this community. And we do have a large number of elderly people in this community, and it's a great place for them to go and meet and exercise and be in places. So it's multifaceted. It's not just it's not just water aerobics, or it's not just swim team. It's multiple things. And I'm strongly in favor of doing this. I was disappointed that we can't open the pool this summer. We have worked very hard to keep it open every year, done everything we can to try to open it. When I say there's a private group called Three Rivers Athletic Club that works very hard in hand with Park and Rec to run the swim program and to do everything we can to support that pool and keep it going. So, been intricately involved, and I understand why we closed it, and while I am disappointed, I do see this as an opportunity to move forward maybe a year quicker, and hopefully we can get there and only be down for a year. They have our citizens not have a pool for 1 year. I think that's too long, but the situation we're in, I think, deems it necessary. So, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you.
And thank you, Larry, for all the years of service to the kids. So that much appreciated without any funding to you.
Okay.
I wasn't going to say anything. My name is Karen Vitale. I teach water aerobics. I just wanted to get up to agree with Larry as someone who has seen the growth of the pool and so many people that use it. I'm all in favor of a new pool. I know we've shown up many times. The water wasn't the right level, and it's cold and leaking. We knew it was leaking, and we still did our class. We worked it out with swim team. They moved the ropes. We did our class. That's how much the people wanted to come. It's not just because of water aerobics. It's good for your joints. It's just good all-around activity for a lot of older people in the community, but I also have a lot of younger people taking the class. There's no trauma to your joints. Swim team, I was on swim teams my whole life. My dad was a Navy veteran. I lived near the water my whole life, and it's great. Swim team is wonderful for our young kids. We have so many rivers here. It's not just the pool. They need to learn how to swim. They need to learn how to swim. It's very dangerous if they don't. So I've seen private swimming lessons. I've seen how the pool's being used for swim team. It's not just water aerobics, but I'm all for a new pool. I know there's a lot of money lost every year because of the leakage, and we tried to find them, we just couldn't. I'm also on the track committee, and I was one of the ones who went out and got donations. It's something that the community wants, and I just wanted to throw my hat in there. can tell you. I really hope this does get done. And I'm more than willing to wait, we all are willing to wait if it's the right thing, and we won't have any more problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, the whole question of the pool not opening this year aside, with a show of hands, how many people here believe that we need to build a new pool?
Take a picture of
Look at it. And the rec center.
You're around.
But the water's
Year
unsafe.
round.
Unsafe.
In that case, what I'd like to do would be to spend a few minutes here talking about funding this. Y'all are aware that we have $600,000 that we've set aside. What I would like to do would be to fund another $300,000 in 19. And go ahead and start the construction process of this pool. Now that can be started this year. It'll go into next year because it'll take a while to get this done. But if we're gonna be able to open it by Memorial Day next year, we have to get started pretty quickly on this. So I'd like to fund another $300,000 in 19. That'll give us $900,000. If we can fund the same $300,000 that we've been funding in 20, that gives us $1.2 million. Now, $1.2 million was the original estimate about 3 years ago to build a new pool. I'm a little concerned that what we may be looking at now is more like $1.5 million. But and if that's the case, we'll deal with that. But what I really want to do is have a plan for $1.2 million and have the majority of it already funded. With that in mind, what I'm going to propose is some changes. This will not be spending additional capital money. What I'm going to propose is moving some things around, postponing some things for a year, and utilizing that money for this year for the pool. There's two primary sources. Every year, we try to do a rotation where we buy new ambulance every year. Now, we do that because we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where all of a sudden one year we haven't been buying any ambulances, and one year we've got 4 of them that's just wore slap out, and we're looking at, trying to get 4 ambulances. So rather than do that, we're on schedule with 1 ambulance a year. The year the hospital closed, we bought 2 because we figured if we're going to have to be transported to Jasper instead of right here in LJ, the trips are going to be longer. We'll need more ambulances. We have slated for 2019 an ambulance, and I asked our public safety director how severe the consequences would be if we were to not purchase that ambulance in 19 and pick back up in 20, buying 1 a year. And he was kind enough to say that he could work around that. There is one other thing. Is it $29,000?
How much was that ambulance?
$210. Is it $29,000 that we were a little short on the 28 on the oxygen tanks and collect gear? Okay. We've got about $28,000 that we need to fund for the breakout gear and the oxygen tanks for the fire department. I would like to take that from the amount that was budgeted for a new ambulance. That'll leave us about $180,000 that I would like to put toward the $300,000 for the pool this year. It means we need $120,000 to add to that. In 2018, we budgeted $250,000 for a contingency fund for county buildings, for improvements to county buildings. In 18, we didn't spend any of that money. In 2019, we budgeted an additional $100,000 to add to the 250, and also $176,000 in addition to that for courtroom electronics. So we have $350,000 in a contingency fund for building improvements in the county. With the improvements that we're going to be making to the courthouse this year, we've got places where we've got to replace, put in new carpet. We have Tabor House repairs, we've got to put a new roof on Tabor House and some other things there. If we fund those from this $350,000 contingency, and then we take $120,000 of that and put it with the $180 from the ambulance, that will give us $300,000 additional this year to put toward the pool. It will still leave a little more than $100,000 in the contingency for building improvements for the county, which ideally will not have to be used this year. We certainly hope not. And then, of course, next year we can replenish that again with some additional funds. So that is my proposal, $180,000 from the ambulance that we will not buy in 19, we'll pick it back up in 20. $120,000 from the contingency fund for building improvements for $300,000 additional funding toward the pool. There will be $900,000 that we will have in hand in 19 to start construction of the pool. And with that, we can go ahead, we can do the engineering, the grading, the clearing, everything, and get this thing going. Now, as I said before, this is something we can't complete in 19. It's a project that'll fall over into 2020. At that time, we'll need to fund the $300,000 that we hopefully would have funded anyway to finish out what we need for the new pool. So that's my proposal, and I would actually make that in the form of a motion.
Charlie, can you help summarize what we'll get for that money? You mentioned it earlier to somebody about
Well,
outdoor pool.
what at the very least, a new outdoor pool. Now, what we hope to be able to do is also cover it right away. We hope we can get a covered pool. If not, then the pool would be designed in such a way that we could come back in the following year and cover it. But we're also going to need a building that will house dressing rooms and bathrooms. Because you can't have a pool without those things. So, and we'll need parking.
And we need land.
Well, I'm not proposing that we pay
That
for
doesn't
land.
include any cost
That
for
does not
land.
include land costs. No.
That's all I want
It
to clarify.
does not include that.
And I'd like to add that I absolutely see the importance of this community getting a pool. And a community center, a recreation center, that's our ultimate goal. I am also in strong support of that being covered with the design, the whole design, with the intent of it being covered. I think that is ideally our best use of our money for that. So I just want to clarify that that is for sure the intent and the design, and I don't know if Kevin wants to address any of that, but.
That is the intent in the design. Now, if we can get a pool, dressing rooms and so forth for 1.2 million, but it turns out that if we want it covered, that's going to be another 200,000, then we have a choice to make. We can not cover it in 20 and try to cover it in 21. Now, we want the engineering to be such that it's designed for a cover. So that when we do cover it, it's not going to be starting from scratch. But we can decide at that point, we can have it open for a year and cover it in 21. Or if we can find 200 more thousand, we can do it right then. But that is a decision, assuming the engineering is going to include the cover. That's a decision we can make at any point in the build process and the construction process.
With that in your motion, that's the intent, is to have that ultimately.
Well, my motion will be that the intent is to ultimately have a full rec center, but the primary part of that would be a pool first and foremost. And a covered pool would certainly be the intention as quickly as possible, either right away or within a year or so. So yeah, certainly that's the intent, and I have no problem at all making that part of my motion.
Charlie, is it a proper procedure that, I'd like to make some comments, but I think I'll make it in a manner of amending your motion,
You can do that.
if that works.
Sure.
Because I think I want to say some things in regards to all that, and I'm sorry to have to write it down and do that, but it keeps me from running too long. You know my proclivity for that. I'm going to speak for the post commissioners, and I haven't talked to Carlene, and I don't know if she can
I'll
disagree
speak up if
with
I
me.
disagree.
You disagree with me, but I think as post commissioners particularly, it is our desire that any project that's approved for providing swimming facilities and rec center facilities in this county be successful and not fail. That's absolutely in my mind. That's my personal, and I think I'm speaking for both post commissioners.
And the chairman.
And the chairman, I didn't mean, but I'm just speaking, I know your view. I know your view, Charlie.
But you always be successful.
And along with that, I'm going to say that we really, and I hope my post commissioner with me would resolve to never ever let a project like this end up like we had on a project called Clear Creek Ball Field or Cherry Log Fire Station, or for that matter, a courthouse, where it was over budget, past the schedule, in some cases didn't meet the quality and the scope of what was needed, and I will not, as long as I can, I will work to never let that happen again. I think that's another way of saying I will work to make these projects successful and not fail. If we don't have that in mind, we don't need to be doing it. I'm going to make a few other comments, but then I'll make a specific proposal that's in line with what you said, but got some different details. There's a song that I really like, and I like Alison Krauss, who's a real good singer and does a lot of bluegrass. I don't know if any of you know it, but she has a song that she's written, and it goes, I'm not going to sing it, don't go back.
It was like this.
Keep the mic on, but the title is, Everybody Wants to Go to Heaven, but Nobody Wants to Die. You want to apply that to a pool? Everybody here, I thought, I maybe missed somebody who wants a pool, but I'm not sure you're ready to pay for it. Do you want $1 million added to your property taxes to make it happen? That's a question. You answer, don't hold up your hands. That's what it's costing, at least 1.2. We're talking maybe 1.5. So I want to put it in perspective. I really think, and I want to address closing of the pool because that's a big issue and a big question. I truly believe Charlie did what he had to do in closing that pool. I understand why he did it. I'm going to say that was a very good political decision, meaning that it may not have been the best financial decision. And Charlie said, I'm not making this decision on finances. If I may joke a little bit, sometimes we politicians, myself included, we use economics or economics, depending on what school you went to, sort of like a drunk uses a lamppost for support, but not illumination. I'm sorry, but that's what politics does and what it is. I like to think that good politics and good economics go together, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of good politics that is bad economics. We need to keep that in mind. Charlie's exactly right in saying that this pool has been leaking for many years. We've all known that. To my knowledge, the biggest leak we ever discovered was in 2013. In that pool, there was a pipe that broke between the pump and the pool. According to the sewer and water people, we pumped 1,600,000 gallons in 1 month in 2013, none of which went in the pool, but it went out the leak from the pump, the pipe between the pump and the pool. That wasn't the only one that leaked, but that was the biggest one that was leaked. 1.6 million plus happened. So in 2013, we knew we had a problem. Now that leak was fixed, that pipe was fixed, it was repaired. The leakage went down for several years. It stayed down pretty much, not to what I would like to see or nobody, but it is. It's still leaking. It's still, in my judgment, in about the same condition it's been for 4 or 5 years. And I wish I could have convinced Charlie to close that pool 4 or 5 years ago when we had that talk discussion, but we didn't. I will say that I don't really believe that pool is ready to collapse. And I heard Mr. Reagan, or whatever your name was, I missed, but saying that there's a pretty good amount of rebar and concrete and reinforcement in the bottom of that pool, but I don't know that. I wasn't here.
They've been working for it, they are. Probably take a D8 done this year.
Take a little bit of dynamite maybe to crack it. But anyway, I got a lot of faith in that pool, but because of where it's leaking, it is still a problem and should be closed. There's an old saying that somebody told me one time, and it goes like this: don't just ask the butcher if the meat is fresh. And I have not heard any real confirmation or substantiation, in my view, of real evidence that says it's about to collapse. And so I want to let you know that's my feeling, even though I'm not sad. I'm not sad that it's closed, because that's the only way. That's the only way we would be having this discussion and be talking about a new pool. We would never be politically able to create a new pool and spend money on a new pool when we have a pool that's already working and open. So we have done that. That's good news to me that we are able to do this talk. I think the proposed schedule that Charlie has is a dream. I see no evidence that we're able to do something of this magnitude in that amount of time. I wish we could. I would like to make that happen. I'm not willing to take that risk. I know you aren't willing to take a risk. I'm not willing to take a risk of being a year behind schedule to make this happen. I think it's much too risky of a schedule. I don't know. We are, in the past, actually, this board, not counting Carlene, but a previous commission board, actually voted officially to authorize and to build in the future a year-round swimming facility. There is an informal resolution, I don't have the number, we could look it up, but this commission has committed itself to a full year-round aquatic facility for this county. That's in the record. If we only stop at building an outdoor facility, we aren't keeping our word, because we committed publicly to build a full year-round facility. We tried that, we've been working at it, it hasn't worked out, but I think if we do this, we should not forget that that's been the commitment of this commission. I think Scope is something we need to look at, and I agree that getting the engineering work done up front will give us a good feel for whether the schedule's right, the price is right, everything. We will know and need to know that. I want to know that before I'm ready to commit 1.2 million. And we can't spend 1.2 million in this year anyway, so I can't amend this year's budget for that amount. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, that all being said, let me say this. I am not willing to consider any request that takes money from an existing approved project to pay for a new pool. I think that's a bad policy, that's a bad precedent. I'm not willing, actually myself, to tell or to request that we not have an ambulance, a new ambulance this year, which was discussed through our budget process, was vetted publicly for people. We knew what we asked, what fire chief asked for, we knew what was coming. We approved that. We made a promise to the taxpayers to use that money for that purpose. I am not willing to go back on that promise and change that. I don't know if we'll be able to get a new one next year. I don't know what the budget's going to be next year. We haven't had any discussions on the budget next year. You may not get that ambulance next year. I don't know. I do know it's approved, and I do know it's available this year. I do know the building authority requested money for our courthouse and Tabor House. That money was requested to be restricted to strictly being used for improvements and renovations of the courthouse and the Tabor House, and that money is not to be used for other purposes. It's not to be used for other buildings in the county right now. It is restricted, and that's what we promised the taxpayers, that we would build that fund up so that 10 years from now, we're not looking for a loan of $5 million to keep the courthouse open. That's what that fund was for. I think the other item that I would suggest is that since our pool is closed, I know we've got about $93,000 left in the budget that hasn't been spent on the pool. If it's really closed, then I think that money is available. That money should be put into our contingency fund. That's what was already approved, already scheduled, already committed in our budget for this year, and will not be used, or if it's going to be used, I need to know why. So, Charlie, I would be willing to consider a 2019 capital budget amendment request, which you're making, for, I picked a number of $150,000 for the engineering and design work. I don't know if that's enough. That's the number I picked, so we can discuss that, but that's the number I picked. I would be willing, and I think both post-commissioners would be willing to consider at least $150,000 for 2020 to do site preparation and $600,000 towards construction work. That gets us about halfway through the construction. And then for a 2021 budget, we will add the next $600,000 to finish the construction. Now, those two $600,000 numbers will be coming probably from SPLOST. I'm assuming we would have to expect that. That's what I would expect. And hopefully that is going to come from SPLOST and not from a 1 mil increase on our property taxes. That's not what I'm suggesting we do, is up the property tax. We will need, whenever it opens, 2020 or 2021, we will need approximately $100,000 just to operate and maintain that pool. That's a figure that we've been using for years. We probably need to up that, but that's a figure that might get us going on operating and maintaining it. I would say this is my kind of strings attached, Charlie, here that I'm going to throw out. Every time we do a capital budget or get a request, that request to be approved, we got to know that the funds are going to be available. That's easy. What I'm saying is we better not plan on any debt, because I'm not going to ever vote for borrowing money to build a pool or anything else. That's not something I want to do. I think every capital budget request, such as this one,
should have a mandatory 20% additional contingency in both dollars and time, so that we don't get ourselves into the situation that we've been in other construction projects that I mentioned before. And the third thing is that I really do not want to vote or take any action on any budget request outside of our normal annual budget process. So come this fall, I think we should consider and talk about and deal with the 2020 budget that you talk about for the pool, and deal with that question then. I do not want to deal with that at this time. I don't know whether there might be something more priority than a pool when we get to talking about a budget next year. I don't know. There may be a better priority. We may have some roads that are closed. We may have some buildings that fall down. We may have some problems that we have to address. So it's a question of priority that I don't know until we get all the requests for next year. The sheriff may come to us again, which he will, and ask for stuff. Fire department will need things. Everybody needs things. So I don't want to discuss tonight those future year budgets, but treat that and this part of the pool part of it as part of that regular budget process and deliberations and commitment at that time. So that's a whole bunch of stuff to say, and I will stop and let
Charlie, do you want
everybody talk about it.
I will tell you that because I have spoken to our Director of Emergency Management, Keith Kazera, and he has given me his word that he feels like we're okay without that ambulance. I believe there's a motion on the floor, and I will second that motion of the numbers that you worked for the budget. I think we are I don't want to do anything in a rushed manner, but our goal is to have a pool open as soon as we can, and I think you worked out. I am okay with spending the money in the way that you've thought through, and so I second the motion.
I guess I made my speech as a amendment, so you need to not second my amendment to his motion.
You were seconding my motion, but I didn't have a second yet.
I apologize.
And we can't do your amendment until
I
I get a
apologize,
second.
Charlie.
Before you do your
Order.
amendment, let me just,
Okay.
a couple of things that I want to mention. I agree with what you're saying in terms of committing 2020 resources, and nobody knows what the future holds and so forth. Here's the thing. You have to have a plan. Planning is, in my mind, the most essential thing, and the most essential thing that we need to be doing up here. I'm probably, I don't know if I really ought to admit this or not, but I'm not up for election this year, so. I can't function without a plan. Well, I don't need this down from
I'm just agreeing with you, it's true. My plan.
But I don't look at that as a bad thing. I think that anything you do, you need to plan in advance. That you can't do planning without making some assumptions for what you feel will have to happen in the future. Now, if a building collapses, if roads collapse, whatever, if some of those things happen that you mentioned, then, my plan kind of goes up in smoke. That's the risk that you take when you're doing the planning. But I do think that we need to have a plan, and having a plan means that we make some assumptions about the 2020 budget. In terms of not being able to complete this in the timeline that I mentioned, I'm not going to argue real strong with you about that. I think it's possible, but I've said right from the beginning, that's very ambitious. We'll have to be very aggressive if we're going to do that. And I can't guarantee you that it'll be done by Memorial Day next year, and I picked that day because that's usually the opening day. All I can say is that's certainly going to be the objective, as to have it open at that time. I would like to say too, when you say that you don't think the pool will collapse, I don't think the pool will collapse. I think the pool could collapse. And I know y'all are probably tired of hearing my Russian roulette analogy, but I'm gonna say it one more time. You know, when you're playing Russian roulette, you put the bullet in, you spin that cylinder, you put the gun up, you pull the trigger. Most of the time, you're gonna be okay. Odds are you're gonna be fine. But that one time when you're not fine, the consequences are so severe that you just don't do it to begin with. And so, yeah, I really would be surprised if the pool collapses. But it's something I'm not willing to risk, just like with the Russian roulette. You know, we spin the wheel, spin the cylinder in the revolver, and I ain't putting it up in my head and pulling the trigger. And that's kind of the way I feel about where we are with this pool right now. I would also like to say, I don't think there's anybody up here that would approve a tax hike for this. I know that the analogy that you're making is that $1.2 million is equivalent to about what $1 million would bring in property taxes, and I concede that, but I'm afraid when you start talking about in terms of millage, people might leave here with the idea that taxes are going to go up. That's not at all what I'm proposing. And I would not propose that. If we run out of money, and if we just can't find enough in 2020, you know, I may come to you and say we tried, but it's going to be 21 before we can fund it all. That's not my plan, but we all know that's a possibility. What I can tell you is not a possibility, at least in terms of my vote, would be to increase the millage rate in order to do this. Now, with all that said, I want to be clear on what your amendment is.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, your amendment is to use the $93,000 roughly from pool operations this year and not to change anything else.
That part of it was Charlie. We just need to put that into the maintenance and operations contingency fund, just because we're not gonna spend it, so let's put it in the contingency.
Okay.
That's just a simple bookkeeping thing.
Yeah, and we can do that, but
Yeah, that's
what was your
number
amendment?
one part, just to move that. I didn't suggest that we even
Okay.
apply that.
So your amendment would be to move that into contingency?
That's one piece of it. We obviously need to create a new separate project fund for the pool. That we haven't done that, and I think to create a new fund, we need to actually do that in a formal.
I think we actually have, haven't we, Sandy?
Not specifically for the pool. That's what I'm asking.
But there's no money in there other than pool money, right? I can't.
I think that's an error, but I won't confirm it.
Well, the pool money is included it's in the capital cost money,
I thought we gave it its own account number.
We have
not a
not yet.
bank account.
Okay.
We don't have a
I
separate.
just
But
want
within our-
to, all I want to do is make it separate, and that's not, I don't think, I don't think we're in just in anything on that. The third thing was to actually transfer $150,000 for this year into doing actual work for this year. And to do that work would be engineering and design work, certainly. That's my proposal, to put that much specifically for that. And spend that this year and approve that for this year as an amendment, so that we have that approved and done. I do not want to transfer or take money out of any other project, whether it's the ambulance or what the building authority requested for maintenance and improvements and renovations of the courthouse and Tabor House. I do not like taking it out of there. I'd like to find somewhere else.
That's another part of that. I think then I want to object to what you're suggesting. That's just a bad policy. So I don't want to do that to, I don't want to say rob Peter to pay Paul, but we're taking a promise back and putting it somewhere else. I don't want to do that. I think those are the main financial issues of this. I will not vote for what I believe without changes to what you've suggested. I would consider a very, very high-risk proposal of failing, and I do not support failing projects. So that's where I'll leave it.
Okay. Does everybody understand the,
Am I clear there, Carlene or Charlie, either one?
Well, I do, I know that if amendment works, I don't know that I completely agree, but
do you understand what he's proposing?
I do.
Okay. That being the case, and I understand what you're proposing.
Okay. That's all I
So
want.
Dallas has put forward an amendment to my motion that will require a second. So the next question is there a second? Hearing none, Dallas, that would
Understand.
So now we're back to the original motion. Are there any comments, any other discussion on the original motion?
Charlie, just a clarification. How much do you think we will actually plan and schedule to spend in 2019? I know I got all your numbers, but I lose track of where that's going to fall in the years. Not any further breakdown.
I don't think that we would plan on spending $900,000 in 2019. The reason that I would like to go ahead and do $900,000 this year is, and it's not about the $900,000, it's about the additional $300,000. Where we are now is we've already set back
I
$600,000.
understand that.
We need $600,000. I would rather split that and try to come up with another $300,000 this year and $300,000 next year than to start all this work on the assumption that we can come up with $600,000 next year. It just takes away some of the question mark.
Yeah, you're looking at doing it in 2 years. I'm basically breaking it into 3 in my mind, but I got
Well, actually, 2 fiscal years, yeah.
Right, that's what
One fiscal year,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, understood.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion on the motion?
Just one question.
Yes, sir, come on up.
Do y'all ever try to get any grants or anything? Down in Atlanta?
We
or
do,
big places?
we do, and we certainly will. We just can't count on it.
Another commission, I believe that pool, I believe we got a 300,000 on this back in. I can't remember, that's 40.
We will absolutely be looking for grants. The thing
I
is,
saw more for the courthouse, but y'all ain't got nothing to do with that.
we can't address that.
And, I even helped lay the pipe going to the river. They used predators, you know, but there was carpenters, had 2 good carpenters, 2 good bricklayers down there. But on Saturday we'd work, I needed to work, so we'd do that. Anybody ever check the valve and see if it might be open? Halfway open, water draining
You
out.
check the valves, have you, Kevin?
Like I say, it's sure. It's
Yes, sir.
That line's been disconnected for years.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. But you raise a good point. We will certainly try to get grants. It's just that I don't think that we can rely on that. I want us to have a plan in the case we don't get any.
And thank you for building that pool, because a lot of families have enjoyed it all these years.
Can I make one more comment in closing? If you can consider this as an investment into your community and not, again, simply a hole in the ground, if the community's going to grow, you need to have quality. And part of that quality is you need to make a commitment and be fairly proactive and optimistic about it, that you're making an investment into your community that's going to grow with your community and not simply just be that hole.
I
That
absolutely
notion of
agree.
calling it not just a pool, but a community center, if you will. I think if you kind of work with the paradigm shift and not think of it just a pool only, makes it easier to market, makes it easier to brand, and it's a little more palatable to
Yeah.
swallow than, oh, we're going to build a pool. Well, I don't swim.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a hole in the ground was a bad choice of words. What I was really trying to say is that a lot of the cost is not just the pool itself, but the joining structures like the dressing rooms, the bathrooms, the pavement, that sort of thing. But yes, sir, you're right.
Yeah, which is a community investment. for the
Exactly,
people.
yes.
That's how communities grow.
Yes. Okay, any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. All right, the motion carries. So what we will plan to do is get started right away on trying to identify the size, type of pool. I think Larry has some suggestions for us on that. We'll get with him on that. We want to make sure that we have a pool that is suitable for use for the swim team, has the appropriate lanes, and also zero entry, something that the seniors can use. We want it to be something that kids, seniors, everybody can get use from. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about a ramp, Charlie? A ramp?
I thought that's what zero entry was.
That's a problem. Well, we already have a lift,
Okay.
That's different.
so you're wanting a ramp.
That's,
Great.
okay, well, that's the kind of thing that we need to talk about in our planning. And any input that you have on that will be very much appreciated. I want to make sure that when we go to the engineering folks, that we've got our ducks in a row. When we talk about a ramp or zero entry or lanes, you know, I want to make sure that we get your input. I want to make sure that we get Larry's input, particularly on the lanes and so forth. This is something that I do not want to say, oh shucks, later on. So.
It will be heated, right?
Yes, sir. In fact, the heaters that were donated earlier for this current pool will be removed and placed on the new pool. And
Not enforced coverage though, Charlie, right?
well, yeah, we'll go ahead and place them as part of the construction now. Whether we turn them on without it being covered,
Well, it
That's
won't,
another thing.
the first year, but then you won't be able to heat it up. The sun, well, the sun,
Can I speak to that?
well, no, yeah, go ahead. But, you know what, let's go to the microphone because later on, we're gonna wonder who said what, and we're not gonna be able to hear it on our recording, so.
Thank you. Larry Likens.
Yes.
So the heater that's presently at the pool is functional, it is installed, and it has been turned on, and it's approved by the state, and it works. It was 100% funded with private money from this community through TRAC, which is Three Rivers Athletic Club, and we have committed to donating that, moving that. The heater's actually, it's a pseudo partnership with the county, but the heater's going to be moved from there to the new pool. And the heater was always designed to work on a pool that is not covered. So it will work on a pool that is covered. And there's multiple ways to have a heater work on a pool that's not covered. You can get solar blankets on top of the pool that will heat it. And you take them off when you go in and swim. We've also purchased TRAC's also purchased a bubble which to go over the pool. It's an older bubble, but it would have worked if this pool was still open. The reason we never heated the pool because it was losing 5,000 gallons a day. And the only way the heater heats the pool is when the pump's turned on. So it was losing 22,000 gallons. With the pump turned on, the gas bill would be astronomical, and it wasn't feasible, which is why we didn't turn on. But that's the savings that's already part of this project. It's already here in existence, is moving that heater from where it is now to the pool, and it'll be ready to go the minute the pool's ready to go. And it can be used without the pool being covered if we can't get a roof on it. And even with the roof, it'll still need to be heated, and it'll be used at that time as well. Did I answer this question?
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Mr. Lankins.
Yes, ma'am.
The cover that was originally purchased, was it purchased with donated money from different people in the county like the heaters?
Yes, ma'am, that was all one pot of money.
Okay.
And the cover we bought used, I'll tell you, it's $3,000 we paid for it from, what county did we get that from? Jeff Davis County.
Oh, maybe we can sell it back and put that money.
I doubt it, because It was a used bubble when we got it.
They
It's
probably
been sitting in
covered
storage
it.
for 2 or 3 years when I tried to get on politically.
I didn't know how much it cost, but anyway, so.
It's relatively cheap.
Any way we can get money back into it, plus, I mean, we might, for example, physical therapy. When I was in Atlanta, I broke my foot, and the physical therapist actually paid to have their client, you know, they had a person there, and they paid to have their clients come to the pool with what, knees or ankles or backs or whatever. So that might be a small income stream.
Well, yes, ma'am, that is something we considered. When we were gonna open the pool this winter, we had a plan, and that was part of all the activities and possible revenue streams, and that was one of them. We even spoke with the PTs in town, and we had the price structure arranged, and everything worked out for that. So we were all on board, and we had all our ducks in a row to go this winter to the leakage stop it.
Yeah, my knee hurts and I really need to be in that.
Hang on, one more here.
And I really want to get you in one.
We need to beg for donations too. I mean, I'm for it.
Yeah, I would not turn down any help free offered. So,
All right, thank you.
thanks, Dave. Okay, anything else? We will go ahead and start down this road then. I really appreciate y'all coming. We don't need a executive session. Any final comments before we adjourn? I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.